Hey there, Art Mancheno here. I had someone ask a question on YouTube as to what exercises I was referring to that help recruit the reticular activating system. And because I had mentioned that there were certain exercises that could help your mind become more active, which is the goal of the first step of ascension, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as my theory is concerned. Well, it involves extensor muscles of the back specifically. And one thing that's interesting to note is that let's say you look up and you fire off your neck muscles, automatically, because you have posture and balance, it's part of neurology, they all work together, the back muscles to support your neck when you look up, so they all fire as well. That's just a little interesting side note. But the exercises that I was referring to that help super excite the reticular activating system, and this is just theory, but it's what worked, is, for example, the Superman move, where you get on the floor on your stomach and you lift off your head and your arms and your legs off the ground, and you hold that. It's almost like you're kind of pretending like you're flying in space. And what that does is it fires off a lot of your extensor muscles, or your, as I refer to them, your anti-gravity muscles. So aside from that, the exercises that I would do don't require weights. So you could, for example, cause yourself to tighten a bunch of muscles up. And there was one exercise I did in the very beginning which involved firing off as many of these muscles as possible, all of the muscles, starting off with your extensors, here, your furthest digits here. I would fire off one at a time, and obviously if you don't practice this, you're not that good at it, but if you focus on it, you can get better and better at refining the muscle control. And so I would start off with the furthest digit, then the next, and then down, and then do the same thing extending. And then basically, as I was firing off more and more muscles, I ended up trying to fire as many of them at the same time as possible. So I would think, okay, now I'm going to start firing the biceps, now the triceps, now the shoulders, and so on and on. And this just happened to be at a time when I had just finished studying a bunch of the muscles, the attachments and ligaments. And during that time, I was very, educated in the amount of muscles we had. And so it was fresh in my mind, and try to recruit them all as much as possible. It's very energy intensive. But the point was to try to send as much information, stimulus to my brain as possible. And the whole point of the physical workout is to excite the brain and to make the brain more focused. And obviously using your body to do this. Now there's also cross-crawl exercises, very important to recruit your right and left hemisphere, which is also important in this process. So when you're a baby, you start off by, crawling on the floor. And one of the best exercises for stimulating neurogenesis, as it turns out, is sprinting. Now that's very intense. Obviously you want to start off slowly and build up to it. And, always ask your doctor if, these exercises are okay to do, because they are intense. So let's see what else. Now, so there's also, I mentioned that, you don't have to use weights, you just use your own body's resistance. Now, something interesting as far as neurology is, when you fire off your bicep, your tricep automatically relaxes. And that makes sense because you don't want both muscles firing at the same time. You're not going to really go anywhere. So, but there are exercises that you can do where you do fire off both. And the idea is to just, have the brain basically trying to push or stimulate both muscles at the same time, even though the tricep is an antagonist to the bicep, and vice versa. So that, there's sort of some nuances in this process. You want to create as much stimulation from your environment as possible, and these things are involved with muscles and muscle tightening and so on and so forth. And the idea is to work with your natural neurological processes. Let's see what else. So there was an exercise program I remember that came out. It was a while back now, but it wasn't created until, like, let's say a couple decades after I came across my exercises. But I noted that they were very similar to the exercises I would do when I first came up with these workouts to stimulate your brain for maximum neurogenesis, maximum focus. And it was called P90X. I'm not sure if it's still around. I think it is, but it's an older workout system, and I would highly recommend, if you're first starting off, you want to know what to do, I would suggest trying to get your hands on that exercise program, and then work with that for the first 2 hours in order to really get your mind super focused. Now, aside from the Superman move where you're laying on the ground and trying to keep your arms off the ground and your head, there's also, like I mentioned, sprinting. Now, after you get through the focus portion of the exercises that I came across, and you start working more with now energy, the flow state, frequency, there's a powerful, super powerful position, and that involves putting your hands up and looking up along the lines of gravity, or now, I kind of say you put your third eye against the lines of gravity, which is straight down, essentially. And now I used to just do my eyes, but I like the third eye concept, so I just add that in there. What you're doing, obviously, when you have your hands up like this, and the point is to open up sort of energy channels in the way of toroidal flow. If you don't know what a toroid is, look it up, Google it, and get an idea of it. So I believe it makes your body into sort of a tuning fork. So you have your hands out, your legs apart, you're looking up, you're firing off the extensor muscles, obviously, when you're looking up. And one thing to note, as I've kind of studied different religions, attended different churches, there are some I noted where when people are praising Source, their God, their vision of what Source is, they tend to hold their hands up. Or, if you see someone who wins in the Olympics, hands up. I don't think these things are chance. It's a sort of an opening up of this energy and connecting to a higher source. And it just happens that it fires off your extensor muscles, which causes more focus, and so on and so forth. So those are the exercises that I would add on to different workouts. And every time, it's different. One day you want to push yourself in a certain way, like, let's say, stretching or jumping higher, or trying to run in place quicker for longer, etc., etc. This is a process where you have to have fun. You're always wanting to push yourself. And as far as exercise goes, I have 2 rules, and I hate rules, but I think these are necessary. First rule is don't get injured. Very important. Obviously, that would set you back. But the second rule is to push yourself as far as you can go without breaking rule number 1. So the idea is that you want to push yourself and initiate pain, but a healthy pain, not an injury kind of pain. And the reason why is because you want to push yourself to the point where your body has to adapt to become stronger, whether physically or endurance-wise or stamina. There are all different kinds of ways that you could approach this, and really it comes up down to what you feel like doing that day. You have to keep it fun. So that's all the information I have. Well, I always have more information, but the idea is that those are the exercises that I would focus on and I would practice, and that worked for me. And remember that these exercises are supposed to essentially focus your brain the most, stimulate your brain the most. And these are all ways you could use your body to do that. Aside from that, you could use external stimulus like sound, light, so on and so forth. I would use red light. And it turns out there are some interesting properties to red light. I mean, I learned this decades later. I just happened to tap into wanting to use that at the time. And like I said, I think I was divine some of this information. I'll put some links on things I was referring to in the comment section. And always, if you like what you hear, you've learned something, please like and subscribe and share. It's very important for the YouTube algorithm or the Facebook algorithm, and we want more people to know about this because it's important that we maximize ourselves and start learning that the body and mind connection is a lot more powerful than we've understood. Thank you.